As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Happy Tuesday, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. Today we're going to be talking about Ukraine and Russia, and I have an expert on later in the show to break this all down for us. Of course, there are many different people that are saying, hey, why are we even talking about Ukraine and Russia? We need to focus on the United States. We also need to focus on what's going on in Canada. Well, I think we need to talk about everything, and especially the fact that President Trump said earlier today in his statement, which, by the way, you need to follow those if you're not, that this would have never happened under his administration because Putin and the rest of the world looks to America for strength and leadership. What we saw from Joe Biden earlier today was not strength, was not leadership. So we're going to break it all down. But I wanted to also give you a heads up on two Supreme Court cases that have come down today in terms of what the court is actually doing. So the first one is that the Supreme Court decided to hear a case of a web designer who initially, it's been reported, refused to create a wedding website for a same-sex couple. But the Alliance Defending Freedom, where I'm an allied attorney and in connection with them, they actually told me and clarified this is a pre-enforcement challenge. So I think that's actually a more interesting take on the Supreme Court accepting this case. Basically what that means is that this web designer didn't actually refuse anything. This is just the web designer saying, hey, we want to have a determination by the Supreme Court pre-enforcement whether Colorado's public accommodation law allows for the government to either compel or restrict freedom of speech based on the First Amendment. So the actual the actual issue in this case is, and I'm reading this now, is the certified issue is whether applying a public accommodation law to compel an artist to speak or stay silent violates the free speech or free exercise clauses of the First Amendment. This is important because the Supreme Court is actually giving this either or. As you've heard me talk about on this show, the First Amendment and all of the rights that it protects, including freedom of speech, freedom of association, free exercise of religion. And so, all of these issues within the First Amendment don't just allow us to exercise our religion, to speak things that we agree with, but also that we can't be compelled by government to exercise a religion we don't believe in, to speak things we don't believe in. And so this type of issue going in front of the Supreme Court, I think is going to have, especially with the current composition of the court, is going to have a really, really profound impact on precedent and religious liberty and First Amendment precedent once this case is determined. So the fact that the court took this up as a pre-enforcement challenge, I think, is fascinating. And we, unlike what we saw, and people like myself were kind of disappointed in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, of course, thrilled that Jack Phillips won that case. Of course, that was the artist that refused to use his skills and talents to create a masterpiece that violated his sincerely held religious beliefs in creating a cake design for a same-sex wedding. The court ultimately found for him, and that's great, but it was a very narrow opinion. So it wasn't as broad. And now, given the current composition of the Supreme Court with the three justices, of course, appointed by President Trump, hopefully now we'll see more and more protections, not only for speech, but also for religious freedom. So I've reached out to my friends at ADF, and hopefully next week, we're going to have one of their attorneys on the show to break this down more. So wanted to give you a heads up on that case. The oral argument has not been scheduled yet, but we will definitely let you know when it is. The second case today was about a challenge to Maine's vaccine mandates and the state of Maine implementing those for healthcare workers. And the Supreme Court declined today to hear a challenge in that case under religious exemptions. So unfortunately, the Supreme Court appears to be still staunchly in the perspective that healthcare workers can be compelled based on the Medicare, Medicaid law, and we broke that down a few weeks ago. Definitely go listen to that podcast if you're interested in hearing more about the rationale and reasons for that case. I broke that down. But basically, the idea is that the Supreme Court said because federal law says that when there's any healthcare workers that get funding through Medicare and Medicaid, then the federal government does have the statutory authority to put restrictions on accepting those types of funding. And so that's why the healthcare worker mandate was upheld by the Supreme Court. So it looks like with this denial of hearing this particular case, now the Supreme Court is basically saying, been there, done that. We're not interested in revisiting that opinion, at least yet. So we need to continue to pray for the healthcare workers. And I don't think that, while I understand the Supreme Court's rationale on that, I think that Congress absolutely, especially when hopefully we get a conservative majority in November, hopefully, Congress will revisit that and actually change the law so that no future administration can harness that power and slip in a federal mandate to all of the healthcare workers just because of federal dollars. This is why federalism matters, why state sovereignty matters, and why federal dollars come with a price. It really does. So before we get to Ukraine and Russia, we have to talk about legacy precious metals. So friends, last year, your dollar lost a ton of value. Inflation rose by almost 7% in just 1 month toward the end of the year. That means in 30 days, your dollar became 93 cents. Inflation is the silent killer. It's a hidden tax that's felt by everyone. This administration is only making it worse. Inflation isn't slowing down, it's escalating quickly. Gold provides a hedge against inflation and can protect your family's wealth. Legacy Precious Metals is the company I trust for investing in gold and silver. You have to take this seriously, friends, because oil prices are rising, we have supply chain issues, and all of this is going to compound our inflation problems. You can trust Legacy Precious Metals because they give you unbiased counsel based on your personal situation. It's time to be proactive and take steps now to protect yourself. So call Legacy Precious Metals. They can advise you on all of your options, whether that's rolling your existing retirement account into a gold-backed IRA, or whether that's holding physical metals directly in your home, or whether that's investing in crypto, which is a really new, fascinating way to expand your portfolio. So you can speak to an IRA expert at Legacy Precious Metals at 866-528-1903, or download their free investor's guide at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com. All right, so joining me now is Kathy Barnette. She is running for U.S. Senate from the great state of Pennsylvania. And Kathy, thanks so much for joining me today. I wanted to get your perspective before we talk about your campaign and all of the amazing things that are going on in Pennsylvania. I think that is going to be ground zero for patriotism and making sure that we secure elections for the future of the presidential races, and so many great things going on in Pennsylvania. But I wanted to get your take first on the Ukraine and Russia situation. First of all, Joe Biden just spoke earlier today about, his take, and I didn't think that he appeared at all the strong leader that America needs. What was your take on Biden and also his relationship with Putin, where the United States is in this mess?
Yeah, unfortunately, the world sees exactly what most of us have recognized for a very long time, and that is Biden is incompetent. And he has surrounded himself with very inferior talent. The world sees it. Not just our enemies, but our allies sees it as well. And you have these despotic regimes such as China, North Korea, Iran, and now Russia recognizing that this is their opportunity. If there was ever an opportunity for them to strike, because these people, they are not motivated like most Westerners are, which, basically it's the bottom line. These particular people, when we're talking about China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, they are motivated by something completely different, and that is absolute control. They want power, they want control, and this is their opportunity to do just that. What we're watching right now play out between Russia and Ukraine, it is 100% as a direct result of Biden emboldening Putin to do exactly what he wanted to do. You can look at the previous administration and the checks that the previous administration, President Trump, put on Russia, the checks he put on China, the checks he put on a lot of despotic regimes. And maybe they didn't like him, but they respected the policies and they stayed in their place. And when Biden came into office, day one, we saw him writing, doing everything he could to reverse the policies that put checks on all of these despotic regimes. And now we have Putin doing exactly what the Biden administration has emboldened him to do by weakening our ability to be energy independent.
Yeah, and it's so interesting and fascinating to me to see how much the United States does play a role on the world stage, and the weakness of Joe Biden, and even just the warmongering of the left and how eager they are, and even some of the rhino Republicans who are very much interested in creating these conflicts that really ultimately come down to money. But I've seen some people speculate as well that the reason that Putin is so interested in some of these regions in Ukraine is because they hold a lot of the food supply for a lot of Europe. And so that can and will create more famines and have a lot of the control, as you were talking about, on a lot of these exports from Ukraine. Do you think that there's any truth to that?
Listen, when you take a look at trade surpluses for Putin right now since 2021, he is doing very well. Scarcity and warmongering actually plays very well for him when you look, and it's primarily because of oil and gas. 60% of Russia's export is in oil and gas. It makes up about 30% of their GDP. So right now, if you look at what they're exporting, their exports of oil and gas has surpassed what they're bringing in as imports. So it is very lucrative for Putin to be doing exactly what he's doing right now, of threatening, even if he doesn't invade. But now I guess today they're calling it an invasion. Either one, whether threatening or whether actually invading, it plays out very well for Putin. And when you have Biden canceling the Keystone Pipeline, that restricts competition to Putin. When you see Biden greenlighting the Nord Stream 2, that provides more of an avenue for him to continue to provide oil and gas to the rest of Europe. And just last week, Biden just killed the Israeli pipeline that would have gone from Israel all the way to Europe, again reducing competition. All of that plays well for Putin. Putin is the number one benefactor of the very foolish policies that's coming out of the Biden administration. Now, when you look at it from a domestic perspective, it really has nothing to do with Democrats versus Republicans, Republicans versus Democrats. This has to do with elites and those who are not elites. The have versus those who are not a part of the haves, right? Because again, just like scarcity benefits Putin, scarcity also benefits those who have a tremendous amount of their assets in oil and in oil and gas stocks right now. Take a look at what's happening with the stock market, with oil and gas. These people are richer as a result of scarcity. So if you create more scarcity, those particular assets are going to do very well as the defense industry. If you're in the defense industry or in the defense industry stocks, again, you're doing very well during times of calamity. But one of the things that I was mentioning to you before is that we have absolutely no strategic benefit of going in and trying to support or protect the borders of Ukraine. I mean, it is very unfortunate that we have an administration that has weakened the position of the Ukrainians while strengthening the position of Putin. It's very unfortunate that is what Biden has done. But again, when you're looking at foreign affairs, one of the first things you should ask yourself is, what is America's strategic interest in injecting ourselves into this particular situation? And when it comes to Russia entering Ukraine, unfortunately, we don't have that big of a dog in this fight. However, we have a really big dog in the fight when you look at what's about to happen, what I'm predicting will happen with China increasing their aggression towards Taiwan. And we want to make sure that we have not stretched ourselves too thin when China begins to ramp up their aggression towards Taiwan.
That's all really fascinating, and especially, Kathy, one of the things you said about this is all about the elites and the people that control Washington. And, so many of the political commentators would like to say, this is about something a lot more humanitarian or more philosophical or ideological, but really this just comes down to dollars. This comes down to, like you said, those people who have the stock that's held in gas and oil, getting defense contracts, and all of this relates around money. And then, of course, all of this also relates, I think, around distraction as well. So how much of this and this particular time frame do you think is just a distraction on the world stage to ignore what's going on in Canada with the Freedom Convoy and everything that is such a disaster for Justin Trudeau?
Yeah, and not just Canada, but here, inflation is, right there at 8%, and it's going to increase. The income inequality that the Federal Reserve has created is only widening. Those who can least afford it are about to be hit. And it's very unfortunate. I mean, I grew up on a pig farm. I grew up very impoverished. I grew up underneath the bottom rung of the economic ladder. I grew up in a home with no insulation, no running water, an outhouse in the back, and a well on the side. And it is very disturbing when I think about, those who still remain in similar situations. I have a large amount of my family who are still living on that pig farm. And what is about to happen to our country with inflation alone, not even talking about, gas prices and the ability to heat your home with energy prices going up over 59% at this point. It's going to be really hard on those who can least afford it. But let's talk just for a second about, the left trying to create a narrative that us assisting Ukraine is really about humanitarian. How much sense does it make that Americans are willing to defend the borders of Ukraine when we are not willing to defend our own borders? At the end of fiscal year of last year, October, we had over 1.7 million unlawfully present aliens to come into our country. Now, I've looked at the numbers for November, December, and January of this fiscal year, and for each month, we are 2.3 times higher in the number of unlawfully present aliens who have crossed our borders this year versus last year. If this trend continues, Jenna, we are on track of having 4 million unlawfully present people having come into our country, and those are just the ones we've encountered. So put an exponent on it for the ones we have no idea who these people are. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they're going. We don't know if they even like us or not. And yet the left would tell us we need to protect the borders of Ukraine, but for us it's humanitarian. I mean, it's humane if we allow these people to come into our country, because for us to say anything other is to be a racist. There is nothing racist about wanting to know who's coming into our country, do they like us, how they're going to take care of themselves, or where they're going. There's nothing dispassionate about wanting to have sovereignty over our own borders. We're not a sovereign nation if we don't have sovereignty and control over who gets to come into our country. So we need people, and that's the reason why I'm running for office now, because we need people who understand the nuances, I'm not interested in winning the applause of the left-wing media. I don't care if they like me or not. What I care about is the fact that country that allowed me as a little black girl growing up on that pig farm to be able to claw my way from underneath that rock and create a different story for myself. I care about preserving that America for the next generation, and specifically for my own baby.
Yeah, and that is so wonderful. And I'm seeing across the country so many stories like yours, Kathy, where just, the common sense patriots who love this country are rising up and saying, we want to take back our government by running for office, by getting invested in government and making sure that we are going to affect Washington. And it's time for people like you and like me to stand up and say, this is our country, and we're tired of the elites. We're tired of the establishment. And so that's why I support candidates like you across the country who are doing this for the right reasons, who actually understand what it means to be an American, what it means to protect our borders, what it means to have sovereignty, what it means to have state sovereignty. I mean, all of these things that you just described are exactly why I'm really hopeful that in 2022, we're going to see not just a red wave. This isn't just Republican versus Democrat. This is America first versus fundamentally anti-American. And some of those anti-American people are actually part of the GOP establishment. Those are the people that need to be primaried. They need to be out of Congress. They need to be out of Washington. And we need to make sure to have really solid people who understand what this country is about, who understand the protections for the hard workers across the country, for people who just want to raise their families and exercise their freedoms, to make sure that we continue to preserve and protect those rights for the future generations. So how can people contact you and find your campaign? Pennsylvania is going to be, I think, ground zero for the next presidential election for sure when we're talking about election integrity, but certainly the Senate and making sure that we have a conservative majority after 2022 is going to be critically important. So where can people find you and more about your campaign?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on again. Listen, I am your best chance at ever getting anyone in office who will actually fight for you, who will actually work hard for you, who will actually listen to you. And if we have learned anything over these past 2 years, we should have learned what kind of candidate we want representing us. I believe, we need to continue to send a very strong message to the left, but also to our own party that we want better representation. And if you want that, if you understand what is at stake, please go to barnetteforsenate.com and donate. I cannot do this alone. I have 3 carpetbaggers who have parachuted into my state with very large purses, and they are not interested in you. We've had 2 debates now, and they refuse to present themselves on the debate stage. They refuse to come and talk to you and allow you to peek behind the curtain to see if the Oz is real or not. And so if you want better representation, I need you to go to barnetteforsenate.com. I need you to donate. I need you to go to Kathy Barnette for Senate on Facebook. Like my page. That helps a lot with algorithms. And you can find me on Twitter at Kathy for Truth. And I'm going to be on President Trump's social media real soon. And so you can find me there also at Kathy for Truth.
Awesome. Well, and this is where I continue to tell everyone, who listens to this show and who follows me as well, to donate to the candidates that are actually making a difference. Because what you said about the carpetbaggers coming in, that is absolutely true in so many different races across the country, that you're seeing the elites from the national RNC. They want to pick their winners to make sure that they are still under the thumb of Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, Ronna McDaniel. I call them the McMorons. They're all the Mcs that need to go. McConnell, McDaniel, McCarthy. They just need to go. Yes. And so what you can do, even if you're not in the state of Pennsylvania, you can still donate to candidates like Kathy. You can make a difference, and you can reject the establishment narrative and actually support candidates who, guess what, will actually listen, do their job in Washington. Shocker, but that's actually something that we need to support, right? So
it can be done. Our leaders should do more than look for viral moments to put out on YouTube in order to collect dollars. Our legislators are equal co-branches of the federal government. They are not as impotent as they walk around pretending or portraying themselves to be. They're supposed to be there either controlling the budget or controlling the purse or putting forth good legislation, and they're doing nothing. They run before cameras, beat their chest, and say, oh golly gee, sorry, maybe next time. We can do better than that. And I earnestly believe it starts with this upcoming election, and it starts with my campaign. So please help me.
Absolutely. Well, Kathy Barnette, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your insights and also your passion for serving our country. So best wishes to you, and look forward to talking with you really soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Blessings.
All right, so the other story that I have to tell you about, just because this was so hilarious, speaking about Mike Lindell, who is, of course, a sponsor of this show, a very dear friend of mine, and you all know that MyPillow products are so great, made in the USA, and Mike Lindell just has the biggest heart. He has such an amazing Christian testimony, the Lindell Recovery Network that helps so many people. He was on this show a few weeks ago talking about how he was canceled out of his bank, and this guy just gets trolled from the left like almost as much as Donald Trump. I mean, it's so insane. So last week, this was hilarious. And if you follow me on social media, you've probably seen this story. But Mike told me that he gets this call from a reporter at the Daily Beast, which of course is this leftist sort of trash website. There's one reporter there, I have to say, that I actually do appreciate, who is fairly reasonable and okay. But as just a publication, conservatives don't at all trust the Daily Beast. So it's like past midnight his time. And he's announced that he's sending thousands of pillows to the trucker convoy in Canada. And so this reporter is like, well, how are you going to get them in now? Because, your drivers aren't vaccinated and there's all of these blockades. I mean, that's kind of the point of the Freedom Convoy, right? Is that everybody's concerned that the regime is concerned that they are stifling all of the traffic and all this stuff. So Mike just trolls them back and he says, I'm fashioning little parachutes that we're going to parachute in all of these pillows to the Freedom Convoy. And he's being totally snarky about it, which, as a snarky person myself, I absolutely appreciate this. The Daily Beast actually buys it, runs with this story, and is like, Mike Lindell is going to parachute thousands of pillows to Canada. And Yahoo Business and Business Insider and all of these other left-wing mainstream media publications pick this up. And so he calls me, and because I texted him this story and I'm like, this is hilarious. So he calls me and is just dying laughing, going, I can't believe these people actually ran with this story. But I'm thinking that may not be the most outlandish thing that Mike has ever considered doing. So I don't know. I mean, but it was so funny how the Daily Beast really wanted to troll him and make fun of him and be like, oh, that could never happen. And he's saying that he has all of these people, who are volunteers, who are staying up around the clock sewing these little parachutes. And so Mike completely trolled them. And then he sent me a bunch of these memes that were great that had him parachuting into Canada with a pillow. It was hilarious. So definitely, Mike Lindell is a dear friend of this show, of the Salem media family. And that's why we promote My Pillow products, because he has been canceled out of stores. He continues to be trolled by the left. And I love the fact that we get to support and affirm Mike Lindell here, because nobody should be canceled for their political perspectives, even Whoopi Goldberg, honestly. I mean, she has a right to say crazy stuff, and we have a right to turn her off. I never watched The View. But the mainstream media and the leftist regime has an almost monopoly on how they want to cancel people and say, if you don't go along with our narrative and you have an opinion that is not preferred by us, then we are going to cancel you and we are going to make it so financially destructive to you that you are going to either be silenced or you're just going to go along with the narrative. That's what they're doing in Canada now with seizing bank accounts. I mean, there was a report out that I saw just earlier today that a single mother in Canada donated $50 to the Freedom Convoy. That's as much as she did. She just, donated through that. And now her bank account has been seized. A regular average citizen donating $50, totally not illegal, just says, here, I want to use my resources, my freedom of speech, my freedom of association. That's the point of donations. And now Justin Trudeau in Canada is seizing her bank account. This is ridiculous. But that is why you and I and the rest of the world, frankly, but especially Americans and particularly Christians, we need to be willing to stand up and speak, support in every way possible the freedom fighters who are on the front lines. And that's why I love supporting Mike Lindell. And so you can find all of those great memes and everything on all of my social media platforms, and now Truth Social as well. I'm on Truth Social. My handle is the same as everywhere else. It's at Jenna Ellis ESQ. And you can also use my promo code, which is JENNA. That tells Mike and My Pillow that you're a listener of this program, that you support him, and you get great discounts. And so right now, Mike Lindell is having an incredible deal, and he's calling it the sale of the year. So for a limited time, you'll receive 60% off the Giza Dream Sheets that come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. You'll receive a set for as low as $39.99. I have these dream sheets. They're kind of awesome. I still love my slippers though, but you can use the promo code Jenna on all My Pillow product, not just the dream sheets, not just the My Pillow, not just the slippers, not just the robes, but even the towels, everything else. So for a limited time with any purchase, you will receive Mike's soft cover book for free when you use promo code Jenna. I've read his book. I told you, his testimony is so amazing, from crack addict to CEO. It's truly, absolutely a God story. And we all have stories of how God has intervened in our lives and has hopefully compelled us to accept his free gift of salvation and to start on a path of truth and to embrace the truth of who God is and how much he loves us. And, this book is amazing. Mike is amazing how much he's willing to stand firm, not just in the political sphere, but also with Christian truth, the Word of God. And you're going to love this book. So go to mypillow.com, click on the Radio Listener Square, use promo code Jenna. And along with this offer, you will also get deep discounts on all My Pillow products. So go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475. Use the promo code Jenna. That's Jenna. And also, before I go, I have one other invitation for you that you absolutely need to take advantage of. So I'm officially inviting you to join me and over 2 million other active AMAC members nationwide who have made AMAC America's largest organization for conservative seniors. You know how hard I have fought for integrity in our elections and for our American values. AMAC shares our concerns, and AMAC's message is very simple. You are not alone. But make no mistakes, many battles lie ahead, and it is more important than ever that you add your name to AMAC's membership roster. This is freedom of association. This is all about making sure that we know that we're not just the silent majority, we are the majority. So I'm personally urging you to choose AMAC now. You not only get great membership benefits, including AMAC discounts on hotels, travels, restaurants, but at the same time, your membership will support your values. So go to amac.us/Ellis today to start your discounts. That's amac.us/ELLIS to become an AMAC member, because America does need great organizations like AMAC. I will see you tomorrow here on The Jenna Ellis Show.